Welcome back to the journey. We're happy to have another guest here with us today, and I'm happy to welcome Yvonne Newgent.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're just really tickled to hear another journey because every journey is different and every journey is special, and God works through all of us, and so we're happy to hear about yours. We're probably just going to start by, how did you get to St. Joseph's? Now, I've known you before St. Joseph, and so I'm wondering, in the interim, if there's another place you were, or how did you get here?
It was a long trek. Let's see, as a child, my parents took us to church until I was about 8, and something happened, and we never went back again, and they wouldn't talk about it. Then, as a 20-year-old in college, I became a Christian, and then 40-year trek through various types of churches, and
then you found us?
Well, before, I guess 30 years through that, and then my husband died, which sent me scrambling for church because I was in need at that point. And I joined a nearby church. But my son had, at the same time, been at the church with you at Christ the King and become Catholic, and said, "Mom, you don't know how many Catholic ideas you have. You really should be Catholic." And I was like, well, I just jumped into this church and I'm not ready to make a change. But I kept coming back and going to church with him, and then COVID hit and I wasn't going to church, so I figured that was a great time to start reading about Catholicism.
Oh, that's
so
perfect.
I read for about a year. People like Scott Hahn and Bishop Barron and several others. Names are escaping me, but anyhow. And by the fall of that year, I was like, okay, Lord, yeah, I think he's right. I really am Catholic. However, I have spent 40 years hearing the Catholics are the ones who are taking people to hell, so could you give me a healing to show to me that this really is the right decision? And he not only gave me one, he gave me several.
Wow.
Several physical ones and a relationship healing that was totally out of the blue.
Oh, my goodness.
I said, okay, Lord, I know where I belong.
Well, you've had quite a rich life. I wanna, there's so much to talk about. I'm curious if you wouldn't mind going back, how you first became a Christian. And I guess you weren't Catholic.
I was not raised in any religion after they left that church when I was little, right?
Okay. So how did you said you became a Christian?
Yeah, dorm mates were a big influence, and my husband, who was not yet my husband, kind of hit the final nail. And, yeah.
And so that's when you made a commitment to Jesus.
That's when I made a commitment, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you just took a while until you got to the Catholic Church, right? In the interim, were there other churches that you tried?
Yes, we started off in Southern Baptist churches and some non-denominational. The latest one after he died was Methodist. But he had come from a family that had left the Catholic Church and were very adamant against it, so that was not an option.
Wow. So you felt really put off by what you heard from him and from other people about the Catholic Church.
Yes.
Well, I experienced that too. As a Protestant, I had some relatives that felt the same way. And there's a lot of people out there that do this us them in a lot of categories. Church is a big one, right?
Right.
And so you were held back, I guess, for a long time because of that.
Yeah. The scripture that says how good things come to those who love the Lord, or all things work together for good.
Yes.
And I think in a way my husband's death was the release that got me here. I never could have gone here without that.
Wow.
So it's yucky to think about in a way, but I'm so thankful I'm here.
Yeah, we never know how God is going to work in our lives, and that certainly was a very devastating and tragic event for your family. And
Right.
most of us live in fear of things like that. I know I do, live in fear of bad things happening. But we never know, like you say, how God is going to come in and use that kind of event to
Right.
help us in a big way.
Right.
So you said you then had a number of healings. Was that through your son taking you to that church, or?
No, that was just this last, a year ago?
Okay,
A
I
year
mixed
and a half
up the
ago, right.
chronology there.
When I said, okay, Lord, I think I really do believe this, but would you show me this as a sign? And it was some weight loss, which for me has been totally impossible without feeling miserable and exhausted and weak even. Some other physical healings, diabetes went away, cholesterol changed radically, and then a healing with a person very close to me who has been very adamant against the Catholic Church, but kept coming back to me during COVID. So have you found a church yet? And when I told her, it was on the phone, yes, I'm going to the Catholic Church in Eldersburg, and she said, well, I'm so glad you found a church home. I thought she didn't hear me right. I had to go back to her
Like,
and
what was that?
Right. Well, I was seeing her in person in a few days, so I waited till then. But did you really hear me? Yes, I really heard you. Yay!
Wow,
Thank
that
you,
is
Lord.
That
Yes.
is a big healing.
It is. Yes.
Well, you know, you're saying that you discovered that you were Catholic. Okay, now I haven't gone about my journey the same way. Could you say any more about that? What was it that you discovered? Can you unpack that a little bit?
I might. Yeah. Some. One is my love for children. I have 10 children and have believed that God does not want birth control, which very few people I know believe that. I have always struggled that kids are often not welcome into church. They're sent off to children's church, and that's not the case here. Oh dear. There's more.
Well, let me ask you about some things. Maybe it'll jog your memory. I mean, a huge part of the Catholic Church, of course, is the Eucharist.
That was the next thing. That was just coming to my tongue.
I had a feeling that might be coming. So.
Yes, as opposed to we'll do this once a month. It's crucial.
Yeah.
It's crucial.
Why is it crucial?
Because I need Jesus in me. I don't function without him.
That's a really good way to look at it. I mean, truly, because we are taking Jesus in. I know I've talked to a lot of people who talk about it the same way. Because we really need his what? What in particular do you love about Jesus and having Jesus in you?
The ability to love the unlovable comes first, I think, including myself and my kids, really. Yeah, I can't imagine where I would be without.
So his supernatural powers to do that,
Yes.
you feel like now you have them too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And then it radiates out from there to share with others. To have hope. Can you imagine living your life without hope? I have a profoundly disabled 33-year-old. I've been widowed for 10 years now, which happened when my youngest was only 6. And to get through those things without God, I just can't imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been able to love your children, you've been able to love your disabled son and be able to manage that. Is there anything there that you want to talk about? My guess is that you see Jesus in him all the time, and that you see Jesus working with the two of you all the time. Do you have any special memories of times with him?
I'm not good at particular memories, but yes, so many people are struck by the fact that we did not listen to the doctors and put him away in a residential hospital and forget about him. And we've got him out meeting people and meeting Jesus, and he loves Jesus. And people see that. And that has made a difference in a lot of relationships.
Yeah. That's what I was hoping to hear, because my guess is, people don't know that when they see someone that's disabled. They don't know what you've just said, that he can love Jesus, that he can, all the things that you just said.
Yeah, it's hard. He can't say it out loud to you. He doesn't speak, but yes, he does.
How do you know? Can you help some of us who?
Yeah, it's
who
funny.
Don't live
he
your
comes
life?
to church and just yells a lot of the time, so it doesn't look like it. But he says he does, and he says he wants to come to church. Not in words, but I ask him, and our typical go-to for yes, no is the head stays down, it's a no. Head gets up, he smiles, gets excited, any of that. The answer is a yes. And so lots of yeses. My biggest, another one that I would almost call a miracle is I started reading the catechism, I guess about a year ago. Not quite a year ago, 8 months ago. Because I figure if I'm going to be confirmed, I want to know what's in here. And I was just reading it to myself. Jonathan has had a hard time with read-alouds for the past several years, to the point where it had been a big part of our family culture, with homeschooling and with all these kids coming through. But he had really struggled with it for the past several years, so we had kind of knocked out read-alouds. But he just kept egging me, and I was finally like, oh, so do you want me to read this to you?
The catechism.
The catechism. And yes, that is the only thing I read aloud that he sits and listens to.
Oh, that gives me chills.
700 pages he listened to. It's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, he's on board.
Well, I see tears in your eyes, and it's obvious that you've gone through a lot. You love him, and you're just thrilled that he can love Jesus too, and that you can communicate like this. I mean, it's a wonderful thing, and I think it's good for all of us to know who don't have the life that you do and don't understand that. Well, that's very special. I'm curious how your other kids have been blessed in your life through the events that you've gone through, and have you seen some of those things with your other children?
Yes. Most of my children are caretakers, which I attribute to helping to raise my son.
You mean in their professions?
In their professions,
wow.
Yes. Yeah.
So they're
nurses, one who works at a ranch that helps troubled young men to learn job skills and learn to love Jesus. One works with developmentally disabled adults.
Wow.
So yeah.
You've seen them take on a mission that they believe in. Wow,
that's really neat.
Oh, that's terrific. Now, this whole topic really relates to healing. And I just wondered how have you processed things like suffering and healing? Both, I guess they're sort of opposite ends, or I'm just curious, do you have your own thoughts or philosophy on healing and suffering in terms of being a Christian?
I'm not good at that. The healing, well, I've seen God heal. I don't know why Jonathan didn't get healed. In fact, once I was losing my reading sight prematurely when Jonathan was fairly young, and said to the Lord, I'm trusting you to heal. Well, first it was, I've got to go buy some reading glasses. And then it's like, no, I'm trusting you, Lord, to heal Jonathan. I can trust you for my eyes. I didn't even stop and pray or anything really, other than that thought came through. And my eyes were fine for the next, 20 years? Yeah.
So you experienced that healing too?
Yes. I've seen healing. I don't understand why it happens when it does and why it doesn't. But
Well, you're
I
off
know
the hook
God's in
because I don't think
charge.
anybody understands.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's one of those questions that I guess was pretty unfair to ask you, but the fact that you've seen those and experienced those healings has got to have been a huge, huge part of your faith, and growing in your faith and being strong.
Yeah, yeah. That flippant, oh, God can heal me if he wants me, and then he did. Yes. Yes.
And I guess then on the flip side, suffering, you've seen your share of suffering, and we all have our versions, right?
Yeah, we do.
I've had some of my own, but you've experienced the suffering of Jesus. How has that informed your Catholic soul? In other words, Jesus suffering. Do you feel closer to Jesus because of it? Has that strengthened your faith at all?
I don't know if I've identified it as much between me and him as between me and other people. It helps me understand, when I get a horrible reaction from somebody, I can realize, oh, well, maybe something's wrong, or, yeah, she's living this suffering life. Of course she can flip off the wrong way sometimes, but, So that's where it's informed my understanding, is between other people.
And I guess that's what it's supposed to do, really, because we are his hands and feet, and love thy neighbor, you just said, right?
Yeah.
You certainly have a lot of joy.
Yes.
I look at your eyes, and I can just see a lot of joy and peace. And I'm just wondering, do you feel that on a regular basis?
Yes. I do my fair share of frustrations. This week it was taxes.
Sure.
But yes, behind it all, yes, I always know God has me, and we're going wherever he needs us to go.
Well, that right there is what faith is really all about, right? I mean, going wherever he takes you and walking into the unknown.
Yeah.
And you've done a lot of that. I think we all do a lot of that.
Yes, we
Well,
do.
if you had something to say to people who are suffering or are dealing with healings that haven't happened, that they want to have happen, what would you say to them? Can you tell them right now
Wow.
something?
It might
What's your
sound
advice?
canned, but trust God. He's always got a purpose, and the good always comes from it. Unfortunately, we don't see what the good is, maybe in this life even, but it's always coming. Thankfully, I've seen enough of those answers of where it does turn to good that, yeah, my faith has really been strengthened.
Well, you're a real encouragement to me,
Thanks.
and I know that you're encouraging a lot of people here as well. I really
Hope
appreciate
so.
you being willing to share your story,
Thanks.
and I know there's more to come for everybody, and everybody's journey is who's watching this is not finished. So, I think Yvonne has a great word for us: trust. Trust in the darkness, trust in those days when you don't understand. And you've been a real blessing to me today. Thank you.
Thanks.
And tune in for the next journey.